Okay, I'm Phil Sims, and I'm going to interview Hazel Styve, my grandmother, and it is March 31st, 2009. Now, what's your full name, and why did your parents give you that name, Grandma?
Well, my full name is Hazel Mary Colgrath Styve. And I don't really know why they gave me that name, but my mom always said that she wanted to name me Hazel and my dad wanted to name me Helen. But anyway, I got to be Hazel.
Okay.
So that's about
Did you
all.
have any nicknames when you were a kid?
Not that I remember. My dad used to once in a while call me Hossily.
Hossily?
Yeah, Hossily.
Now, what was that?
I don't know. Just like Hazel, only Hossily.
Now, when and where were you born?
I was born February 4th, 1924, on a farm north of Decorah. My mom always said it was a real stormy day. And the doctor, he had to walk part way to our house because the roads were so bad and full of snow. And it was Canoe Township.
Was that a family farm, or?
Yeah. My grandpa and grandma lived there. And my grandpa and, I don't know, some relatives and neighbors, I guess, built the house. And then when my grandpa and grandma passed away, my mom and dad bought the farm. Well, when I was growing up, we all lived in that house. There was my grandpa and grandma, Gettleman, my mom and dad, my brother Walter, my sister Irene, and then there was a blind uncle that come from Germany, Mike Stortz, that lived there with us, and a great aunt of mine. She had a room there too, but she didn't stay there all the time. She lived with my mom's sister, Grace Arneson, and worked for them. I lived in a big house. There were, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 bedrooms upstairs, and there was big kitchen, dining room, living room, bedroom, and a pantry downstairs. The pantry was beautiful. It was long and narrow, and on one side of the pantry there were wooden cupboards, and then like a counter, and then, well, there was wooden cupboards top and bottom. And then on the other side of the pantry, it was doors and drawers, and then glass doors above where they had all their pretty dishes. And it was a beautiful pantry.
Now, and it was a farmhouse. Now, did you have farm animals and
Oh yes.
around?
Yeah, they raised cows, pigs, they had horses, chickens, ducks, geese. I think that's probably about it.
Now, were you the oldest, youngest, middle?
I was the middle one. My sister was born August 17th, 1921. I was born February 4th, 1924. My brother Walter was born, let's see, March, I think his birthday was March 10th, 1927. And we were all born in the same house.
Okay. Now, in that house, did you have indoor plumbing or what
Oh,
was
no.
the house?
No, we had a furnace and an old cook stove, and that was us kids' jobs. We had to carry in wood. We had to fill the reservoir with water, so we had hot water.
Did you ever get a pump in the house later on at all?
When Peter and I got married, he put plumbing in the house.
That was quite a few years later then.
Yep, right.
No. Did they ever add bathrooms to the house? Probably had an outhouse.
Oh yeah, we had an outhouse. a three-holer. And when Peter put the plumbing in, then they had a carpenter come and he took a little corner of the bedroom, downstairs bedroom, and put a stool and lavatory in there.
Did you have a telephone out on the farm as a kid at all?
Yeah, I don't remember just how old I was when we finally got a telephone. I think we were about the last ones in the neighborhood to get a telephone. But I don't remember just how old I was.
So what was that like when you got the first telephone? Because it probably didn't have your own number, did it?
Yeah, our number was
47F2.
yeah, 47F2. It was.
I remember that.
It was. Our ring was too short.
Okay, now what's that too short mean?
When
Kids are going to have cell phones and they're not going to
Yeah.
know what that stuff is.
when people would call you, there were a lot of people on the line, and everybody had a different number. And when they would call us, they would have to go through the operator, and then she would ring 47F2. She'd ring two little short rings. And I know one of our neighbors, they had, their number was 47F. Well, I can't remember now, but their ring was too long. And another neighbor, Dresselhouse's, theirs was a short, a long, and a short. I remember some of the rings, but I don't remember all of them. And of course, you know, when the telephone would ring, why, they knew who, the neighbors all knew who was being called, so you'd hear a lot of clicking. Everybody would be listening in to see what was going on.
So it's just common practice.
Yeah, right.
For people to listen in because you never know who's
Yep.
doing it.
No.
Oh, things have changed.
Yeah, they sure have.
Now, any special items in the house that you remember?
Oh. Gee, offhand, I can't really think.
Okay.
I remember we had a Singer sewing. No, yes. No, it was a pedal sewing machine, and it was, I think it was a domestic. And I remember one day I was home alone, and I don't know what I was going to sew, but the sewing machine was right under the telephone, and I sewed through the side of my finger. So I called over to my aunt and uncles who lived, probably a mile, or maybe not quite a mile from there. And I told them that I'd sewed my finger. Well, my aunt hung up, and my uncle says, well, we better go over there. She's alone. Maybe that needle is still in her finger. But I had turned it to raise it out of my finger again. But they come over, and I got along fine.
Now, what's one of your earliest childhood memories?
Oh, goodness. I know we used to go out in the woods and pick hazelnuts and hickory nuts and walnuts and berries. That was a fun thing. And my cousins would come over, and we had a little, they called it a grove, like a little wooded area beside the house, between the house and the garden. And we would go down and we would always play in this wooded area. And we would fix like tables and chairs and pretend we were having tea parties, and we would bake cakes. We would take sparrow eggs and we'd mix up mud and put eggs in there. That was our cakes. And if we ever found a bird dead someplace, we always had a funeral for it. We had flowers and we had a burial for it. I remember things like that.
Well, what were some of the personalities of the other people in your family?
Oh, the personalities? Oh, I don't know. I guess they all had to get along pretty good to have that many people living in one house. I wouldn't want to have to do it.
So did you get along pretty well with your siblings as a kid when you were growing up?
My brother the best, I guess. Because my sister, she was always kind of bossy. She wanted to boss all of us.
Now, whatever happened to your brother? Because I don't know.
He was killed in a car accident November 18th, 1945. He was 18 years old. And he was riding home from Motter's Ballroom. And the other guy was from Spring Grove, and he hit a culvert, and my brother was killed.
Now, when you were a kid, what type of games did you play? Now they've got video games and all that kind of stuff, but
Oh, yeah.
back then.
No. We'd play, like, in school we always played like Fox and Goose and Little Red Rover. And that was a game. Little Red Rover was like, you'd say Little Red we had sides. And it was like Little Red Rover then you'd say a name. And they'd have to try to get over to the other side before somebody caught them. And we played a lot of tag.
Now, you had games as a kid. Now they've got the video games and that kind of stuff. What types of toys did you have?
Oh, dolls. We played with dolls all the time. And we'd play cat and rat on paper. I don't know. I think they call it something different now. But we called it cat and rat in those days. And hide and seek. We played a lot of hide and go seek. And Andy I over. Well, now I don't know if kids even know how to play those games.
A lot of different ones.
Yeah.
What was one of your favorite things to do for fun? Did you come to town, or did you stay out the farm and do different things, or what'd you do?
Well, we had relatives. My dad's one sister and husband and their kids, they used to come out so much. And they had a garden out there kind of down in, we had a big woods. And they had a garden down by that. And then my mom's sister, she, they lived, probably a mile or a little less. And they were over so much. I think we were together with some of our cousins and aunts and uncles about every Sunday. And my aunt and uncle, they didn't have a washing machine, so every Monday my aunt would come over with all their washing, and gosh, they washed clothes about all day and hung on the line, and then they'd take down and hang more. So that was a really big day.
No,
But
it wasn't a wash machine like what we've got today. What was
Oh.
it like?
I think ours was a Maytag. I remember it was a gray square tub, and it had this gas motor on. And they would always, of course, have to start that out. We had a summer shanty, and they always washed clothes out in that. Of course, in the winter, then they had a stove out there and would have heat so that they didn't get so cold.
Now, did you ever get allowance or money as a kid to be able to spend on things you wanted to?
Yeah, but not a lot. They didn't have a lot of money. My mom was in the hospital so many times and had so many operations, and we didn't have a lot of money.
So did your dad mainly farm then?
Yeah.
Now, did you have to help with doing crops, or did you have much for crops, or just take care of animals?
Oh no, we went out in the field. We helped shock grain and shock corn, and they planted a lot of potatoes. And we borrowed a potato planter from one of the neighbors. And well, in later years, but when we were younger, us kids, we had to plant potatoes. And we had to hoe potatoes and keep the weeds out. We'd have to go out in the field and cut weeds, but we had lots of good times. I know we'd play hide and go seek in the corn and grain shocks.
Now, you probably did that most of the summer and late summer and early fall.
Yeah.
Was that about the time school was starting, or did you get out of school to do something?
Oh no, we didn't get out of school for that. And we had, each one of us kids had a certain amount of rows of potatoes that we were supposed to hoe. And I remember this one day I was hoeing potatoes and it was hot out, and I thought, well, boy, I'm going to hurry and get my hoeing done. Well, I passed out, went face down in the dirt, and thank God I missed the hoe. And they thought I was dead. But there's lots of good memories about it. Oh, and when my dad would be out like plowing and dragging, they would put a board on the drag, and us kids would sit on that board and ride. Can you imagine how filthy dirty we must have gotten riding on that?
Probably good weight for the drag.
And when they planted corn, we got to sit on the there's a ledge on the, they called it cedars then, I guess, and we got to sit on there and ride, and so we had lots of good times too.
Now, what was school like when you were a kid?
Oh, school. I had to go to school when I was 4 years old because my sister wouldn't go by herself. So I went to school. I was only 4 years old. But I didn't really, well, I don't suppose I probably went all year either. I don't know for sure. But school, and I remember in the winter, oh golly, it would be so cold, and we usually walked to school. We had probably half a mile to go, and we walked to school. And when we'd get there, why, they would have the fire going, and they had some big long benches that they would move up close to the stove where we sat until the schoolroom warmed up, and then we would go back to our desks. And we had an entryway where we come in, and that's where we hung our coats and left our boots, and there was a water fountain out there, like a stone jar with a spout on it. And we always had to go to the neighbors to get the water. We had a pail, and two of us would go, and we'd have a stick under the handle of the pail. And when we'd carry the water back to school, why, each one would have a hold of this stick. And then we'd get it back into the school, and then the teacher would dump it into this water fountain thing so that we'd have water. And
Now, how many years did you go to a school like that?
8.
And then were you done with school after that, or what'd you do next?
Well, a lot of kids went to high school. I didn't go to high school. I didn't like school. And after I was out a year, then I was wishing I would have gone, but then I didn't want to start. So I never went to high school. Which as you get older, you think you should have. But I have a lot of friends that in those days, they didn't go to high school either. So I guess everybody didn't.
So what'd you do when you were done with 8th grade then?
Oh, I don't even know. Worked, helped on the farm, and I don't remember just how old I was when I worked at it was a Blount taxi cab in Decorah. I think I worked there about a year, and then I started working at Wapsie Produce and worked there for 34 years. Well, when I got married, then I quit for a few years, then I went back to Wapsie and
Roughly how old were you when you started at Wapsie, do you think?
oh gosh.
Late teens yet, or?
Oh yeah, I suppose 17, 18 years old. Yeah, oh, and I stayed with my sister and her husband in Decorah. And, you know, helped them out, worked for them some. And I did help out at some of the neighbors with when they needed some help. Helped with the cooking and household chores like that.
Now, did you ever do anything for learning any music or singing or chorus at school or anything like that?
We had one teacher that was, she played, we had an organ at school, and she would play the organ and we would sing. We done a lot of singing when she was our teacher. And we always had these school programs. And I know there was some people that had come to this school program that one time, and of course we sang, and some sang the alto part, and they said that was the best singing they had ever heard in a country school. But that teacher was she was a really good teacher, and she was, you know, good with music.
So many kids were even in the school? I mean, a half dozen, a lot of
yeah, there was at least, must be a dozen.
So it was a pretty small building then, and everybody was in mainly the same room then?
Yeah, everybody's in the same room, all 8 grades. In the winter, of course, we'd get to go outside. We would go across the road into a neighbor's field, and we'd have our sleds, and we'd slide during our noon hour. And I know just not too many years ago, one gal that I went to school with, she was a little older than I was, and she says, oh my, she says, I remember when you went down, and I don't remember what she said happened, but anyway, they had to call or get a hold of my dad. Somebody went over. We didn't have phones, I guess, at that time yet, and had to go get them, and he come over, and they thought I was dead, but I wasn't going to let them get by that easy. So I'm still hanging around here.
Now, did you have any pets when you were a kid?
We had a dog, Fido. Really good dog. He was an outdoor dog, but in the winter sometimes if it get real cold, he'd get to come in the house, but he never went farther than the kitchen. He would lay by this wood stove, but never went into the other rooms. He reminded me a lot of Lassie. Beautiful dog.
Now, what religion were you raised with?
Catholic.
Now, did you go to church very often as kids, and what was that like?
Oh yeah. Yeah, we did. And we had to, well, in the spring when it was mud, we had to get over to what they call the Locust Road, which was gravel. But from the gravel road to our house, it was mud. and sometimes it was so muddy you couldn't even take the car from the Locust Road home, and so we'd have to walk through this mud to get to the car to go to church. And the same way in the winter, the snow would be so deep you couldn't drive there. You'd have to walk to the car, and then
So you just leave the car parked at the end of the road.
Yep.
Wouldn't dare do that now.
Nope.
Be gone the next morning.
And we had this old Model T.
No. Do you remember when you got the car? Or did you
No.
always have a car as you were growing up? Or did you have to use a horse and buggy or sleigh or anything like that?
We had horses and sleighs and a cutter, but as far as I can remember, we always had this old Model T for, I think, oh gosh, for many, many years. And I know in the winter, you know, you'd always have the side curtains on. Well, in the summer, of course, the side curtains come off. And most people had better cars, so us kids, we were kind of, you know, ashamed of riding in this old car. And so we would try to duck down so they didn't know we were in there. Well, everybody knew who it was anyway. And now, gosh, what you wouldn't give to have that old Model T.
Now, as you were growing up, you probably had newspaper. Did that get delivered out to the farm? Or
Yeah,
did you keep
we
up
had-
on what was going on?
We had a mailbox that was on the Locust Road. And to get the mail, of course, you always had to walk over there every day to get your mail. But
Were you ever mentioned in the newspaper or anyone from your family?
oh, God, I don't remember.
Who were some of your friends as you were growing up?
Oh, gee. The Sharp girls. Audrey, Gloria, Sally, Nancy. There were 5 of them. Can't even think of the other one now.
I assume that's just people that lived out
Yep,
in the area.
Mostly
you
the
know, went to
neighbors.
school with them.
yep. And then I think we were together the most during the summer vacation. Well, there was Dresselhouses, Arliss Dresselhaus. She was a good friend. And Bernell Denning, he would come over to our house. I don't really. And then as I got older, a little older, one of my best friends was Irene Ruffridge. And my folks belonged to, it was, they called it the Clay Hill Club. And they always met at Matter's Ballroom, which was a well-known place. And they had dances there, and they'd have, you know, oyster stew suppers and different things. And they always took the kids along. And when us kids would get tired, we'd have a blanket or a coat or something, and we'd go up and lay on the bandstand and sleep till it was time for folks to go home, and they'd take us home again. So I said I kind of grew up on that Matter's dance floor. But Irene Ruffridge and I were very close friends.
So what were some of the world events that took place that you remember most vividly?
Oh, world events.
When you were growing up?
Yeah, I can't even think. Winnebago County Fair, of course, that was still right here. But oh Lord, we used to go to that. Go early in the morning, packed lunch, stayed all day. I don't know what we'd done there all day, but it was big time. Every day of the fair, same thing. We went.
Now, did you ever take animals to the fair and show them? Or?
No. But I can't really think of a lot of world events that at that time. I don't know. My mind isn't thinking, I guess.
A typical family dinner. I mean, what would you have to eat? And was everybody there at mealtime?
Oh, yeah. We always had meat and potatoes and gravy, and vegetables and dessert, and you always had a big meal.
So
And
who
they,
did all the cooking then?
oh, my grandma and my mom.
Now, what were some of your favorite foods?
My favorite food. My uncle, till the day he died, I think he gave me such a rough time about when we'd get to the table, and we'd always say grace, and then he says, just get done with that, and Hazel would say, butter bread. That was the first thing I'd ask for, was butter bread.
So what was butter bread?
Just plain homemade bread with butter on it. And I remember my mom telling about, oh, she said, when you were a little girl sitting in your high chair and you wanted all the fat meat, the fatter the meat, the better you liked it. And she says, oh, you'd sit there, that grease run down your face, and dill pickles. You'd eat them dill pickles and the juice would run down your face.
Now, were holidays much different? Did you have big meals all the time for holidays? Any different?
Oh, yeah, we always had, Christmas was a big time always. And my Aunt Grace and Uncle Julian and their 4 kids, and this Aunt Lizzie that stayed with them, they would always come Christmas Eve and again Christmas Day. And when sometimes the snow, there'd be so much snow that you couldn't drive in the road. So my uncle would take some fences down between their place and our place, which was half mile probably. And that's the way they would come over then, with the horse and sleigh.
So,
And
for Christmas, kids are used to getting all kinds of things under the sun. What types of things would you get for Christmas?
oh gosh, you always got, you know, a toy or something, and in your stocking you'd always get some fruit, an apple, or maybe a banana or something like that. You didn't get things like they do nowadays, but we were happy with what we got. And the kids, these cousins, they would always stay at our house on Christmas Eve because they were coming back Christmas Day, so the kids would just stay. And where us kids slept was right above the kitchen, and there was a register there that just was from the kitchen to the bedroom, just a plain register in the floor. And so when they would take us up, we were supposed to go to bed, you know, go to sleep so Santa could come, and we'd get up there and then we'd get out of bed when they went down, and and we'd try to look down this register to see what was going on. Well, of course, they could hear us, so they'd say, well, you know, you kids, Santa doesn't come till you get to bed and go to sleep, so back to bed we'd go. And we'd sleep crossways in the bed because there was more than 2 of us. So we always slept like that. And boy, in the morning it was a big rush to get downstairs to see what you got.
Did you have any special family traditions?
Oh, went to midnight mass always. That was a must. And I don't know.
So how's the world today different from when you were a kid?
Oh my,
It's some of the biggest differences that you've...
much different. Sometimes you think you'd like to go back to the olden days, and then some people say, oh, the olden days. But it seems like people had more time to visit the neighbors. Seems like we always had company, or we went someplace, we were invited for dinner on Sundays, and people, they done a lot of quilting, and seemed like people just got together and had more time to go and visit than what we do anyway now. Of course, I guess now we're getting older, so
Now,
don't do as much.
who was one of the oldest relatives that you remember?
I remember my grandma. I can remember her, the one that lived with us. She died from pneumonia. I'm thinking she was 80 years old. And I can remember her sitting by the kitchen, the old kitchen wood stove, sitting on a chair, and then she had another chair in front of her, and she had her arms on there and had her head down. And she was so sick with this pneumonia, and then she died from that. And we had, well, it was a relative. There was a nurse that come in for a few days to help take care of her. But, and my grandpa, Gettleman, I can remember in the bedroom they had, where they had these, along the one side of the wall, they had some drawers, and then above that there were doors where they kept their clothes. And he always had peanuts in that closet. And he would always take us kids in there and give us peanuts. And we never ever went in there unless Grandpa took us in there. And my cousins too, they'd come, and he said, well, come on kids, time for some peanuts. And away we'd go to the bedroom and he'd give us each some peanuts.
So, what do you know about your family's name?
What do I know about my family's name?
Has it had any special meaning, or if there's anything significant about it?
Oh, I guess one thing in later years, not when I was real little, but my dad had quite a few brothers and sisters, and his mother died when these kids were all little, and some of them were adopted out, and they just were kind of everybody different places. And my folks spell their name Kolegraph, and some of the other Kohlgraffs spelled theirs Kohlgraf, and another one spelled theirs let's see, Kolegraf. And then he had a brother, Herb, and he went by the name of Gettleman. And then he had a sister that was adopted, and let's see, I think she was adopted by some people by the name of Pape. So that was kind of, kind of a mixed up, but how they all spell their names different. And I says, yeah, I said, they all spell their name different. And then I said, one spelled his Goettelman. And of course then everybody would laugh. But that's just the way it was.
Now, do you remember any stories that have been handed down from your family members?
Oh gosh. What do you mean? What kind of
Are
stories?
there any stories that your parents told about when they were kids, or
Oh.
how things may have been different for them?
Not really. I know my mom had a brother. His name was Willie. And he died from typhoid fever when he was 10 years old. But I can't remember.
Do you remember when your family came to this country? Did you ever hear much about that, or what nationality they were?
My dad. Well, we were both, my mom and dad were German. And this blind uncle, he come from Germany when he was 9 months old.
assuming everybody in your family spoke English. Any of your grandparents speak German?
They could speak German, yes. My mom could too, and my dad and my aunts. But when they didn't want us kids to know what they were talking about, then they'd always speak German. And of course, we got to where we could kind of catch on to some of it, you know. But I sure wish that they would have taught us how to speak German, because that would have been interesting. But
were there any physical characteristics that ran in your family? I mean, were there people that had any special ailments or anything?
My blind uncle had a sore on his leg that always, it never really healed up. And they always just said, oh, it's an open sore. And he had to bandage it a lot. But as of today now, you would think it probably was cancer. But I don't know. But I remember that sore too. It never healed up. Oh, and I have to tell you about this blind uncle that come from Germany. He could play an accordion, a violin, and a harmonica. And all he had to do was hear him on the radio, and he could play them. Oh, he was so good. My sister played an accordion, just by ear. And I play the piano by ear, what I can pick up. I can't read notes. My mom took music lessons, so she could read notes, but I just played what I could.
And were there any special family heirlooms or things that have been handed down?
Oh, yeah. I have, I have the piano that my mom got when she was a little girl, and I treasure that. And when we were growing up, the piano was in the living room, and we didn't get to pound on that piano or mess around with that piano when I was growing up. And my kids too, I never let them pound on it, so it's still in good shape. So I don't know what's going to happen to it when I'm gone. But it's a good piano, really good.
Now, what's the name of your spouse?
Well, I guess Peter Bernard. It was supposed to be Peter Benhart, but they got that wrong. Bernhardt, he says. They got that wrong. So I think on the papers, a lot of the papers, it's just Peter B. Stevie.
So how did the two of you ever meet?
Oh my gosh. My one girlfriend, Marie Solom, and I was on a Sunday, and when, that's when I was living in town then. And big Sunday deal was you walked on the streets and, nothing to do, just sit around. And she and I were walking down the street one Sunday, and Peter and his friend come along in their car, and they stopped and said, "You girls like to go for a ride?" And so we got in and went for a ride with them.
So what types of things did you do on dates?
Oh gosh, went to dances.
Out to Modders then?
Yep, out to Modders.
How long did the two of you date before you ended up getting engaged?
Oh gosh.
Year, 2 years?
No, wasn't very long. Probably, I don't know. Probably a year.
Okay. So how did Grandpa propose to you?
Well, I'll tell you how I got I got the diamond ring that I liked, but I'll tell you how that happened. This was another girlfriend and I that we stayed together. And we were out walking, and looking in window shopping, as we were walking through town, and she says, "Oh, gee, let's look in this window." So we looked in the jewelry store window, and she says, "Oh, God," she says, "there's some pretty rings in there." I said, "Yeah, there sure are." And I said, she says, "Oh, I like this one." And I said, "Oh, I really like this one." And that's the ring I got. And of course, this was a put up job, which I didn't know at the time. But Peter had told her to have me look in the window and pick out a ring. So that's how I got my ring.
So how did Grandpa propose to you?
Oh, gal. I don't even remember, but I know he had this ring, and I didn't know if I should take it or if I shouldn't. But I did.
And how many years have you been married now?
1946.
He says since 1946.
Yeah, 63 years now in July.
Now, did you end up getting married in Decorah?
No, because the priest from Decorah, he dropped over dead just a few days before we were to be married. And so then we thought we'd have to postpone it, and we went to, the priest had a housekeeper. And so we went to this housekeeper, and she says, "Oh my, no." She says, "Father wouldn't want that." She says, "You go to Bluffton and get married." So she says, "Go over there and talk to him." So we went over to Bluffton, and the priest was gone on vacation, but the housekeeper, they had housekeepers in those days, and she said that he should be back by then, so we could plan on that. But if he wasn't back, the priest from Cresco would marry us. And so we didn't know till that day who was going to marry us. But it was the priest, Father Mahoney from Bluffton, that married us. So we were married in Bluffton.
Now, after you got married, did you go away on a honeymoon, or
Nope.
just
His sister had come from Minneapolis for our wedding, and we took her back to Minneapolis. That was our honeymoon. Couldn't afford honeymoons in those days. We couldn't anyway.
now, did you have your own place when you first got married, or did you live with family, or?
No, he moved in where I lived before, or where I was living, which is across the block from where we live now. My girlfriend and I lived there for, I don't know, a long, long time. And then she moved out, and we got married, and he moved in.
So what's some of the memories that stand out from your wedding day? Was there a lot of family there, or what was it like?
Yeah, just like aunts and uncles and cousins. Excuse me. And we had wedding supper out on the farm where I grew up. We ate out in the yard. And my neighbor lady cooked the meal, and there weren't a lot of people there. But then we had a shower dance, and that's when the people come. We had a lot of people for that. So that was a fun time.
So how long was it before you started having kids then?
Oh gosh. Ronald was born in 47. Gerald 48. Elaine 49. Wyon 51. Paul 63.
Now, how'd you go about choosing the names for your kids?
Well, when Ronald was born, if it was a boy, it was going to be Ronald Peter. If it was a girl, it was going to be Linda. So when Ronald was born, Dr. Larson says, "Oh," he says, "you have a fine baby boy." And I said, "Little Ronald Peter." And he says, "You already have a name for him?" And I said, "Yep." And that's what it was. And Gerald, I don't know. I just like the name Gerald, I guess.
So what were some of the most difficult times having a family?
Oh. Well, with 4 kids, bang, bang, bang. And there wasn't a lot of money. And we bought a house. Let's see, Ronald was born when we we moved out of the apartment and into his dad passed away, and we were married in July, and his dad passed away in October. And then his mother went to live with her daughter in Minneapolis, so she asked if we would rent her house. So then we rented her house. Well, then decided to buy a house, and so we bought a house then. And with buying a house and 4 little kids, there wasn't a lot of money around. But I guess we made it.
So what types of things did your family enjoy doing together?
Oh gosh. We used to go for rides a lot. And on Sundays, we would take the Sunday paper, pack a picnic lunch, and go someplace. Lots of times we just went out to, Seaver Springs, out there by the hog house. Well, out where the campgrounds is now. And the kids would play in the water, and we would sit and read the paper and have our lawn chairs with us. And it seemed like we always, like Ronald says, we never done long trips, but he says we always done something. He says, and Mom and Dad always had us kids along. It wasn't like a lot of people, as the husband and wife go and the kids stay home. He says, we always done something, even though it wasn't a lot.
So what would you say is one of your most proud moments as a parent?
Proud most moments of a parent? Oh, it was exciting when these babies were born. And their birthdays and special days like that, like First Communion, baptism, graduation, confirmation. I mean, those were all special days. Weddings.
So if you could have done anything different for work, would you have done anything different, or were you real happy with what you chose to do?
Well, I guess I liked my job. I liked the people I worked for. And they still, to this day, bring me a capon every year for Christmas.
You've been gone for 20 years now from there?
I retired in 1988, and this is 2009. So it's been quite a few years.
A lot of years to still take care of their
Yep. And I know when these boys, the Nichols boys' mother passed away, or no, this was when their dad passed away. And the one, Mark, he wrote the thank you. And he wrote in there, which means so much to me, he says, and thanks for being such good family friends all these years.
It's pretty neat.
Yep.
So what accomplishment are you most proud of?
Oh, I think I'm proud because all of our kids turned out to be good kids, and some of them have their own businesses, and they've all had good jobs, and we didn't have a lot when they were growing up.
What would you like people to remember about you most?
Oh, I don't know. Fun times we used to have when a lot of these friends of ours, we would go out on, to dances and go on steak fries, have basement parties. And some of them are already gone, and we're still hanging around here. And some have moved away. And a few that are left, they are not in as good a shape as we are. So we can't have basement parties because they can't get up and down basements anymore. And I guess I'm proud of our house and what we have got compared to what we earned when we were working. Yep.
Well, thank you. That's all the questions that I've got. So thank you.